right, so I'm blessed to have Ashley Stevens in the house, and I've been knowing this young lady for decades, and I have watched recently how she's been taking over the fashion game, and this other stuff that she's going to really share with us today. And I just want to say that I'm proud of you. I see what
You.
you're doing, and you've been amazing with all the work that you've been putting out there, and
Thank you.
so. You know what this platform is, and I'll
Yeah.
it's talk that fashion shit. So I'm gonna let you, introduce yourself and let people know what Ash is all about.
So my name is Ashley Stevens. I am from Inglewood, California. Um, I started Black by Ash in 2018. And for me, I started it because I felt that there was something that was missing to kind of bridge the gap between what we were seeing that was happening to Black America, what we were feeling, and then what we were really talking about. And so at that time, I just felt that there was like a void. Like we were seeing things, we were feeling things, but we weren't really talking about it. And there wasn't anything that I saw that would catch the eye to start a conversation.
Okay.
And this, goes back to, um, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Alton Sterling, Philando Castillo. It was so many. Almost every day when I was turning on the news or like going on Instagram, it was something that was happening to people that looks like me.
Exactly.
And I, 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 I could understand why these things were happening, or no, I can't. You can't ever understand why they were happening, but I get why it was so broadcast and it was on every channel. But there was something that just like didn't sit right with me about these things.
Hmm.
And I knew that like I had to use like my voice to create something to start having these conversations. Because at that time, and even still now, I feel like African Americans, we're so undervalued and so underappreciated, but there's still such a high expectation for us.
You
It's a
correct.
high expectation for for us to show up to jobs when we know that statistically we're making less than our white counterparts, whether it be male or female. It's a high expectation that even with what's going on to our people, that we're still expected to show up to work and be our best self. And I think that that is a huge problem.
Hmm.
And if we are not using what we have to start those conversations so that maybe people who wouldn't necessarily know how we feel or know how heavy it is to be Black, that this is a statement piece. This is a protest piece where it can invite a conversation. So if you have a white counterpart or a white friend who doesn't understand why you're afraid of the police or why you won't go to certain places or why you maneuver the way you maneuver, maybe now you don't wear hoodies. Maybe now, you know what I'm saying? You don't go to certain areas because you know the outcome of what's going to happen to someone who looks like you.
Yeah.
And for me, it was concerning and it was heavy because a lot of these instances that were happening to people that were not dangerous. They were not posing a threat. And it was people who look like my dad, my cousin, you, my friends. And it's just like, how do we have these dialogues to bring the awareness so that people understand that, there are two Americas. There's white America and then there's Black America.
Yeah.
And,
That's
and and it's a real thing, it's a real thing. And I love being Black. There's nothing that I would change about it, but I also know that there is a harsh reality that comes with it.
yeah.
And so I just wanted to create something to make people feel empowered. I wanted to create something to start conversations. I wanted to create something to bring awareness, and I wanted to create something with intention. because it's very intentional. Every item that I have is something that's intentional. It's named after someone that's done something for the culture. It's, you know, it's a play on different fonts from our favorite movies and just things that are important to me as a Black woman and a Black person. And I think that these are things that I think 20 years from now we'll still be having to have these same conversations, because 2020 has really been a year for Black people. You know what I'm saying? Like, really, it's been a thing, you know, with, you know, mental health being so important, and, you know, people losing their jobs and businesses not being able to, you know, sustain because of everything that's going on, and then really trying to figure out, you know, what the next 4 years looks like with the election and just everything that we really have to tackle in our everyday life. Like I said, there's such a high expectation for us. But what about for everybody else?
I know, right?
You know what I'm saying? Like, why is it so high for us?
I love this conversation. I mean, you really starting this talk your fashion shit the way it needs to be talked right now. I'm loving it, and I don't want to cut you off. Keep going.
No, but it's, you know, so I decided, you know, I always knew that I absolutely love graphic t-shirts. I am a collector of graphic t-shirts, from concerts to the thrift store. So I knew that I wanted to create something that was catchy. I knew that it had to represent me, and everything that I design and create, I wear. And I just felt that it was something that was needed. It was really something that was needed, because I just felt like at that time we weren't being valued, and so that trickles down to how we value ourselves.
Exactly.
You know, and I think it's important for us to always remember that at the end of the day, a lot of these cultures and a lot of these other races, they want what we have.
Mm-hmm. Say that again.
You know, and you know, it's from the facial features to the hair to the jewelry to the swag to the, you know, I was just having a conversation last weekend about how back in the day you could go to Inglewood Sports, and yeah, you might stand in line when the Jordans were released, but you were guaranteed a pair. You knew they weren't going to sell out. You knew that you didn't have, you know, fighting against these bots, and it's just, you know, stuff like that. The sneaker culture, you know, you remember growing up, everybody had to have the Jordans or the Iversons or the Penny Hardaways, and we were able to get them, but then here comes the races and these other cultures, and now they're making it hard. Mm-hmm. For people who really grew up in it, or people who really have a love for sneakers, who are buying them to wear, not buying them to resell for profit, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's just, you know, we have to remember that we are really, like, we are the kings and queens of this thing. And we have to start.
That's funny, though, because I was honestly having that same conversation with one of my friends. And we were just touching bases on, like, when you pick up them pennies or them Grant Hills, it takes you back to a time when you was younger, and I want, like, these kids to have that same, like, when they put on them shoes, and then when they get older, they be like, man, I remember that first date, or I remember that first dance. Like, it's changed. It's crazy.
It's changed a lot, and it's not, you know, it's not really the same, but I also feel like it's just another thing that's kind of like been taken away from us and then put in a place where, like, now it's not accessible to us. Mm-hmm. You know, because I come from the sneaker culture. I come from, you know, early on Saturday, but I knew, you know, I might stand in line for like 10 minutes, but I knew I was walking out with a pair of my favorite shoes. Now, it's like, you got to do a raffle. You got to try to get on the sneak. Like, it's too much.
Yeah, man. You got to get up everybody DMs and try to see how you figure
it out. Yeah. It's too much. It's really, really too much. So I just, you know, I always want people to always remember that we really are, you know, we we are the kings and queens of this culture. We are everything that we need to be for this culture and for each other. We just have to see it in ourselves and see it in each other too.
Correct. Let me ask you this. I know you already hinted on it when we first jumped on our conversation about the direction you wanted to go in with your fashion and how you wanted to deliver it. Is it anybody in the fashion game, maybe old or new, that kind of like made you or gave you like insight of like what the direction that you wanted to go in as far as your shirt?
No, not really, because I don't have like a lot of like famous connections or anything like that.
No, not like that, but it's like somebody that you kind of like, you're kind of like, not like say basing your brand off of, but kind of like maybe like cross colors or something like.
I've always, I liked like how they started FUBU.
Okay.
Um, I always kind of kept my eye and my ear on kind of like what Master P was doing as far as like when he went from like being a rapper to, a business owner to now creating different things. So I've
You got
always just
a
kind of,
couple noodles now.
yeah, like who would have thought, But I always kind of like just, like see what everyone else is doing, but I also know like I kind of have to do what works for me. I'm also kind of one of those people that doesn't really like to focus too much on what other people are doing, because I know that like I have to take my path. But as far as like business and things like that, I think, a lot, and I'm so old school, it's probably crazy. So probably probably any business model after like 1998,
Yeah.
I probably don't follow, because I felt like, after that it just went into like mass producing and big corporations, and then people kind of really lost like the sauce of what was going on. But I always try to keep, like an ear or an eye on really like the core of like the hip hop culture.
Okay. Okay.
Because like, I'm from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that is, and I have, t-shirts named after Queen Latifah, because she was really like,
The queen.
we saw, there was like Roxanne Shante, but I was probably a little bit too young for that. But Queen Latifah was really like the first female rapper that I really remember like coming out and demanding respect, and like from the kente cloth to, everything else, and basically like coming out and saying like, I will be respected. Like I am you know what I'm saying? I am a queen. And so for me, that's important. And I think that's important for like, it was important for my younger self to see too.
Correct. And yeah, honestly, that was for women. I know we're at a foundation now where we want our Black women to feel protected and strong and recognized as powerful queens. And for her to build that platform at that time, you, I want, I don't want to say it's not being shown, but it's not as strong as it was.
As it was. Absolutely. For sure. For sure.
So my next question, when you're able, maybe with a pen and paper or just your computer, you decided that, I wanted to go in this direction and I'm gonna make it happen and full force. Like, was it a point when you got into it, you had that what if factor when you were starting to question yourself, or you just said, fuck it, I'm gonna do it?
I knew that I couldn't keep sitting on it. I sat on the idea for a long time, and I played with it for a while. And I knew that like I couldn't keep sitting on it.
Okay.
I knew that I had all the resources, and I knew that I had all the time. And so I really just kind of needed to put my foot on the gas and just go with it. I didn't necessarily think like what if, because I was nervous, and I kept my nerves to like a bare minimum. I didn't talk to my parents about it for a while. I talked to my sisters about it, and my sisters kind of knew, but I just kept kind of like planning and working like under the radar. And I never really thought like, what if this doesn't work? It was more of like, this is gonna work. and it's gonna work because it's intentional, and it's coming from me.
Coming from the heart.
It's coming from the heart. And so I just took that and I really just, I ran with it.
Hey, you've been running. It's been dope, but I definitely got to jump on your site and order some pieces. And we're going to definitely put the link up and let everybody know how to.
For sure.
My next question follows in almost in that same realm, but for someone that's looking at you and looking at the things that you're doing, and it's like, oh man, she's amazing. How can I follow in their footsteps? Like, what would you give advice of a young lady trying to, follow? Like you looked at Queen Latifah. Now these women are looking at you and they're like, okay, how can I get in this game?
I think that it's important first to decide if you're doing it because you want to, or are you doing it because you want to make a profit? That's really going to be the deciding factor, because a lot of people create things just for profit. Like you see it on Instagram all the time. Like and no disrespect to anybody out there who is a chef or their family's favorite cook, but everybody's selling plates, right? It's a thing. Everybody's doing it. And so are you going to be the person that's selling plates? Are you going to go and be the person that might create something different than that? Because now you thought about it and you've had the conversations and you kind of figured out really what you want. You have to find something that you're passionate about. Because if you're just doing something just to do it, that doesn't sell.
Mm-hmm.
People are connected to authenticity. People are connected to a story.
Mm-hmm.
People want to know, like, well, why did you start doing this? And you can't be like, oh, well, my mom said my spaghetti was good, so I just decided to start selling my spaghetti. It's like anybody can make spaghetti.
Not everybody, but
the majority of the people can, do it and get it done. So it's more or less like, what are you really doing this for? And for me, I never started this with the intention to really like create a supplemental income for myself. That was never, it was never attached. It still isn't attached to $1. Because if you attach something to $1, you're always going to be chasing that dollar rather than like the message or whatever other thing that is more important than that dollar. Because if you build it, they'll come. And so I knew I had a great quality t-shirt. I knew that it was accessible. I knew that it was me. And so I knew that people were going to gravitate towards that.
Oh.
And so with something like that, it's like, if it's me and I'm being true to myself, then the sales and the customers and everything else will come. Because when I think about the alternative, if I was just attaching it to $1, I would have went and I would have, I don't know, people, maybe I would have priced it at an unreasonable price just because I was so thirsty for that dollar. But I know that that's not my intent, and that's not the type of person that I am. And so that for me, that's kind of like where and how it all just started.
That's dope. That's some good information to share, and I people that's gonna tune in and watch this really take your advice. Since you've been doing your thing in this area, how, I guess my question would be, do you look to build relationships, or you just gradually let relationships come to you? Like,
so I have to, now that we're on the relationships, I have to give a shout out to a couple of people who really kind of like helped me along this way. I first want to shout out my friend Still Tipping, Inglewood Tip. He was like making t-shirts for his record label and for like his clothing brand, and he really like helped me. Like we met downtown and he pointed me in the direction of like vendors. And so for that, I'm forever grateful. And so now I have a great relationship with the printing guy. And because of that, I'm able to refer other people. I have to give a shout out to Natalie Fletcher, Knits by Nat. She referred me for like my first article write-up.
Okay.
Which, was dope. I'm also kind of like doing a collab with Black culture creators. So I want to give a shout out to Jade. And then my sisters and my family and my friends, it's important to you. And I feel like in any industry, especially when you're selling something, because people work so hard for their money, you have to build the relationship. So for me, when I have like my pop-up shops or anything where I'm face to face with people, because at the end of the day, I'm a consumer too. And so, I want people to have a great experience when they come and they see what I'm about, because you're nurturing those relationships, because then people feel like they bought something of quality. They don't feel like they just bought a t-shirt and it's going to fade and then their money is down the drain. I've been in business for 2 years, so a lot of my customers have had their t-shirts for 2 years. And they're still wearing them. They still, I get happy and excited when people tell me that they were out and somebody asked them about the shirt or how they feel about the shirt. So I think it's very, very important to build relationships, because those are things that people will mention your name in a room when you're not even present. Or think about you for opportunities that necessarily wouldn't come across my desk per se, because I might not be in that, I might not be in this gathering or that gathering, but if somebody is somewhere and they're like, oh, like, yeah, we need BLKBYASH. That's a relationship that I had and I nurtured either through, a sale or someone actually coming and meeting and having like an experience. Like I always encourage people because I know people are still super leery about ordering stuff online. So whenever I have a pop-up shop and I know that like there's somebody who had like a lot of questions about like, oh, how does the shirt fit? Or is it this or that? Whenever I have an event, I always try to reach out to those people and say, hey, I have this event coming up, stop by. So you can see the product, so you can feel it, so you can come and have the experience and see really, what it's about. And so, relationships, I think in any industry are important, but especially when you are selling something or offering a product, it is important, so important to have really good communication and customer service so that people really feel, and they don't just feel like they're just spending their money just to spend it.
Yep. Man, this is dope. I'm really glad that you came a part of this platform. It really means a lot to me.
Thank you for having me.
Especially having history and then seeing your friends over the years doing wonderful things. Like this is truly dope, and I'm glad that I can share what I'm trying to put out to the world and have people that I've known and collaborate. So like you said, relationships and building relationships and having strong relationships can go a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
My last question, but not least, because we're going to keep doing this. Every time you have some, in the woodworks or, you're putting something together, let's definitely hit this platform and, let you talk your fashion shit. And then like whatever events you got coming up, we're going to keep doing this. So this is not a one-time thing. This is something we're going to keep pushing. So law of attraction, what does that mean to you?
The law of attraction, I think, is super, super, super important in any aspect of your life, from relationship to career to business. It's important. And I think if there's something important enough to you that you want and you work on it, you will have it. You will get it. Now, it might not be in the time frame that you expect because we are not in control of the time, but you will ultimately get it. And, for me, everything that I have wanted for Black by Ash has happened.
No.
And I couldn't, if you would have told me that this would have happened when I first started out, I'd been like, yeah, right. Like, no way. Like, you know, and I literally started with 2 t-shirts. And now, you know, I have a whole collection. I'm working, you know, on other stuff. And it's just because I had the conversations or the positive self-talk where I put myself in a position to, you know, meet people that were going to eventually help me or mention me or put me in a better position. So I think that is important. I think it's important to have goals and to sit down. I have a small team. It's my sisters and my cousins. And, you know, we have a group chat, and, you know, each person has their own thing outside of Black by Ash, but then they all help me. And everything that I've asked for in the group chat, everything that I've wrote down in my notes up until this point has happened. There's probably maybe like 1 or 2 things that really haven't, but I know that they will. And it's really just, I think with the law of attraction, you have to be intentional. And you really kind of have to be your true self, because starting anything is easy. It's seeing it through when it's not easy.
Yeah.
On the days when you feel discouraged, on the months where you might not sell anything, on the, you know what I'm saying? On the time where, you know, like the times where, you know, you had a print job that went bad and everything got messed up, and, you know, because it's not all glitz and glamour. It's, you know, I've been uninspired, and I've had, you know, 24 t-shirts be messed up, and I've had, you know, months where I haven't sold anything, and then I've had months where I sold out of everything. So it's really, you have to stay true to the mission that you're on. And again, you cannot attach it to a dollar, because if you do, then the first time something goes wrong, because you're out of the money, what are you going to do? You're going to give up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think that it's, you know, the law of attraction. If you really sit down and think about it, it's some heavy stuff, because you really, like, you go back and you're like, oh, I wrote this down and now it happened. Or I remember talking to so-and-so about this, not knowing that, like, you're speaking it into existence, so it's gonna happen. And then when it happens, you're like, yeah, duh, like, this is everything that I wanted it to be, you know? So yeah. I think it can be, you know, it can be scary, but it can also be one of the greatest things that you can do for yourself, for your business. And you just kind of have to go with it. But it's not, you know, I think that being an entrepreneur it's great, but it's not for everybody. And everybody thinks that they want to do it because they don't want to have to answer to someone else, or, you know, punch a time clock, or, but the truth is that everything you make or everything you do, it might not sell.
Oh.
You know? And so you kind of have to leverage yourself. Like, for me, I started my company when I was at a full-time job. And I used every resource at that job, printing, ink, days off, you know what I'm saying? Everything to kind of like set myself up, because I was like, I'm working for this company. They don't value me. I know that I'm underpaid. I know that they're not giving me enough work to keep myself busy for 8 hours. So what am I going to do?
Yeah, you just sharing my story.
You know, and I really just, I took it, and, you know, I would work my half days and then go downtown before places closed and, you know, seek out vendors. I would take my day off to drive to Anaheim to go and see, my t-shirt supplier. I would, the Friday before I had an event, I would take it off, because it's just like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not use that to my advantage, And I encourage, people who are working those kind of jobs and are not fulfilled and want to really find something else to do, use that time. Use that time. Listen, they ain't clocking you for 8 hours. Use that time and do your research and use that, 9 to 5 or 7 to 4, whatever it is, to really kind of leverage yourself and set yourself up, because a lot of these companies, they don't care about their employees. You are really replaceable, and they can find somebody to probably do the same job for less too. You know what I'm saying? And, it's just the truth. It's the true thing, and I tell everybody that. I tell, young people that, or anybody who, is sitting at a desk all day. If you want to start a business, use that time in that desk and go in that supply cabinet and get your highlighters and your notepads and your pens and figure it out. Because I think the worst thing people can do is want to start a business and then quit their job.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta build up to the quitting. You can't just like, oh, okay, today's the day. It's like, well, you're not even all the way there yet, And I think that, that's important too. But it also has to be something that you believe in. Like, I don't think I would be going this hard or doing what I'm doing or still creating if, one, I didn't believe in it, and for two, if I didn't know that it was needed.
Yeah.
Because I think I know awareness to Black America is needed. We need it because there's still a lot of people that don't see it as a problem. There's a lot of people who have a reason for why Alton Sterling was murdered or why George Floyd was murdered, and it's like, no, because if this was Timmy Tucker, he'd probably be able to tell a story.
I agree.
And at the end of the day, I'm a Black woman and I'm a Black advocate. And so what I create is my peaceful protest. It's important to me, and I think, it's important for us. Because I think so many times
for our culture.
Yeah, and we are kind of, especially like in corporate America, we're conditioned to not really fight or stand up for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that has to change. I think that it shouldn't have taken a 2020 uprising for a lot of these large corporations to now want to have inclusion and now want to, it's like,
yeah.
So y'all don't want to have inclusion, but y'all will take our dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all will Gucci, Fendi, Louis Vuitton, Rolex.
Yeah.
They want it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to get out of that mindset of giving our money to these corporations that don't really stand behind or have inclusion.
Yeah. They don't put nothing back in our communities. So.
No, they're not. They're absolutely not. And, I've always tried to, go to neighborhoods and shop in areas where there are people like me. Because I feel like, sometimes, as much as we love to support our, Black businesses don't have everything that we need. So we might have to outsource it. But I make it a point to try to go, I live across the street from a Ralph's, but there's only probably like a handful of Black people that work there. So I might drive a little bit further to the Ralphs and the Ladera Center because I know that 75% of the employees from top to bottom are Black and they look like me.
Yep.
You know, I'm not really fixated on name brand stuff like that. And you know, people, they like what they like, but these large corporations or these designers, they don't care. They really don't. And we've seen it.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen it
Well,
this whole
yep.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think that, you know, an uprising and protest and looting shouldn't have taken all of that for now for these large corporations to want to include Black people or to want to stand behind Black Lives Matter or it's like, this has been, I mean, come on, police brutality, we saw it as kids with Rodney King.
Yeah.
This is not, you know, this is not anything new.
Yep.
It's not anything new, but it's cool. Like, it's cool when, you know, they want to take the culture. It's cool when they need it for their own branding or their own, you know, story. But it's like when we're really getting down to it, like, what are you doing to help really build up Black America? Because it's one thing to have, you know, Zoom calls or meetings about what you can do to make your Black employees feel more important. But are you really having those conversations? Are you really encouraging your Black employees to go to therapy because of all the shit that's going on right now?
Hey, man. Trust. When I was in the corporate world, man, you hit like on the keys of everything right now.
Yeah, it's like, come on, like y'all want to be, listen, and I'll say it, everybody wants to be a nigga till it's time to be a nigga.
That's my favorite quote, but yeah, I get
you know. And it's just like, you know, for as long as I can remember, you know, we've made a lot of these companies money.
A lot of money. And it's funny, they always say that we don't cross over, but why don't we? When everybody from hip hop to fashion to this livelihood wants to mimic how we live our life. So
from everything, from the hairstyles to the jewelry to the facial features to the butts to the boobs to the literally from the tattoos, it's everything.
Hey, you know what's man, we definitely got to do this again. Because when I ask people to talk that shit, like, you talking this shit today, so
yeah, but I mean, it's the, you know, it's the truth. And I don't know, maybe for me, because I was raised different, you know, my grandfather, my grandmother, they're from the South.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they migrated here because of all of the things that were happening. And I remember growing up, every conversation we had in that house was a Black ass conversation. And it was about, you know what I'm saying? And it wasn't to look down on anybody who wasn't, but it was really looking back, some of the greatest conversations that have now molded me.
Yeah.
And things that, you know, like, make me feel good about being Black and being where I come from, because, you know, there's also a huge issue with colorism and things like that we don't really, you know, talk about.
Exactly.
And those things are important too. And for so long we were, you know, trained and conditioned from what we were seeing on TV and movies and commercial, that being light skin with long hair and all of this was really like the best thing. We weren't seeing the flip side of the Naomi Campbells and all of the other dark skin or browner skin women and the things that they were doing. And it's like, you know, you could grow up thinking that you're not good enough because you don't fit what people think is attractive.
Exactly.
And it's like, whose idea was that?
I know, right? I'm still trying to figure out a lot of this stuff.
You know, and then it's like, you know, people, you know, Black women are made to feel like they're less than. because of all of that, or because, you know, back in the day, if a man had a certain amount of money or success, he would go and date someone who wasn't Black. But we weren't in a place to know that that had more to do with him than it did to have to do with the woman.
That's true.
If we're being real about it, you know. So it's, you know, it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot, and I think the it's a high expectation for Black America right now, and I think that people need to stop that and stop expecting, you know, so much from us. We're, you know, we're not allowed to be boisterous. We're not allowed to dress a certain way. We have to talk a certain way. We have to do all of these things, because if we don't, then what? Then it's like, oh, they're not educated, they're ghetto, they're this, they're that, he's a thug, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's not always the case.
That's crazy. I mean, if you really pinpoint like what you just said, that those aspects of how, from a young man or a man myself at the age, from when I was at, you know, a teen to my adulthood, you always had to carry a different persona about yourself. Like you almost had to wear like a different mask. Like when you went to work, you had to carry yourself a certain way or talk a certain way. And then when you was around your peers and your friends, then you almost like kind of relax and be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When I was young, I would see that, but I didn't really pay attention until I got older. And I was like, man, it's funny that I cannot go into my work company and just be myself. Or and then you would hear, oh, he talks very well. Or oh,
Like, what's that?
yeah, or you live in Inglewood? Oh, and what high school you went to? And oh, you went to college? And like
Like, how dare you?
yeah.
How dare you graduate from college? How dare you make it out? Like, how dare you? Yes, absolutely. 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 And that's a huge problem. Because it's like, so what do you expect?
Yeah.
Oh, you expect for my mom to be strung out on drugs. You expect for my dad, just say it. You expect for my dad to be in jail. You thought my granny and my grandpa raised me. You thought I went to school in the ghetto.
And you know the funny part, they would ask questions like that, like, are the parents still together? Like, I'm like, yeah. And what did your brother? Like, my brother in college? Oh yeah, he works for Tesla. Oh, like it's
unbelievable. They can't believe it. They literally cannot believe it. Yeah, and that's a huge problem. It's a huge problem, and I feel like it happens a lot in these larger corporations. I think these smaller corporations, or like tech companies, or companies that are really like in the forefront, they're a little bit less of that, because they want the diversity, they want the inclusion. It's these older companies that really just can't seem to figure it out. And it is like, it's really like beyond me. Like whenever, you know, I always remember like growing up, like I've always had like a customer service voice. And when people like meet me in person, they don't expect for it to be like a Black woman. They don't. And it's literally kind of like the funniest thing, but it's like, yeah. I see you. I know, you know? Yeah. And it's just like, why can't we be well-spoken? Why can't we be educated? Why can't we want to further our careers and our education? Like, why is that such a problem?
Exactly.
You know, so it's just, you know, I think now is a good time for these conversations, because we're in a place where things have to change. Yeah. They have to. They absolutely have to. And I think that when people start to open themselves up to want to have these conversations and listen, because it's a harsh reality. It's a harsh reality when you got to explain to someone that looting is the least we could do.
Yep.
Come on now, like that's the least of your worries, or when you have to tell somebody, well, if you got stopped by the police and you had a license to carry and you told the police, you would probably be able to go home.
Yep.
And I think that these are, real conversations. I think that it's important for everyone to get out and vote, to learn your propositions, to really figure out what elected officials you want to put in office.
I noticed your shirt. You wanna?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. This is the BLKBYASH new drop. Politics as usual.
There you go.
It's another conversation piece, but I think that it's important, and we cannot skip over any of the questions on the ballots,
Yep.
because that is an actual win, probably for someone who we don't necessarily want to win.
Yep.
So it's important. It's important to get your ballots in the mail before Election Day. It's important just to make sure that you understand what you're voting for. And it's really important now that we keep fighting this good fight.
Yeah, we can't stop now.
It can't stop now, because at the end of the day, the thing that we're fighting for is the same thing your grandparents fought for, my grandparents fought for. We really just want equality. We want the same opportunity. That's it.
And they don't get it. We ain't out here. Man, like you said, we could be doing so much more. But
yeah, we really just want equality. We want to be I know the one thing that we want for sure is we want to be policed the same.
Yeah.
And we just want the same opportunities that everybody else who looks like us has. We want equal pay. There's no reason why a Black woman should be making less than a white woman, or even those two women less than a white male.
Yep.
If we're doing the same job.
Yeah. And if you qualify, or maybe sometimes we more qualified, and
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that these are things that we really need to speak up. When you go in that boardroom and you are up for your raise, do your Googles and find out what the street is paying someone else with your same job and your same experience, so that you can go and you can ask for that and you have something to back it up.
Exactly.
And if not, then you use that time and you find yourself something else to do.
Never go in that room blindsided.
Yeah, never, because they will literally try to offer you 25 cents, knowing that ain't even gonna scratch the needle,
Well,
and it's because they don't think that you're smart enough.
Yeah. Yep.
So we really have to keep our eye on the prize, and this fight cannot stop. Regardless of who, we just have to keep fighting the good fight, because I think that we're worth so much more than what people are wanting to give us, and we have to start demanding it, and demanding it in a way that is healthy and that is productive, because that's the only way that we're really going to see real change. And it starts in your job. It starts in the things that you really do every day.
Yeah, definitely. It starts in our home. We got to teach our, eventually when I have a family and you have your family, we got to teach our kids and teach them young and.
For sure.
Yeah, but this is awesome. I love this.
Thank you.
Had a great time today.
Thank you for having me.
A lot of information that you just shared today trickled into my brain, so I'm gonna keep pushing forward and doing my thing on my side. And like you said, we need to have more of our young, beautiful Black women to lead the way. And I'm a very big supporter of that. So however I can support you, I'm there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Know what I can do, and then I'm there. And yeah, let people know how they can find you, how they can reach you, if they want to like ask you questions, like young women want to reach you and like, hey, yeah, how can I sit down with you and talk with you and you help me, get my my woman strength on.
On Instagram, it's Black by Ash, BLKBYASH. The website is www.blackbyash.com. That's BLKBYASH.com. And I'm always open to have conversations. I think conversations are really the gateway to anything. And even if nothing ever comes out of it, we've at least exchanged an idea or something to get something going. So, if anybody wants to know more, I am a hub. I am here. I'm always ready and willing to have these tough conversations or just these conversations that are needed. Because I really think that a lot of people aren't having them. A lot of people, and I know it's heavy, and I know it can start off light, and it can get heavy, but I think those heavy conversations are needed. They're needed for us. I think relatable conversations about Black America is so important. I think that exchanging knowledge on anything is important. I think, and it's just important to talk, because I might be lacking something and have a conversation with somebody and I've just gained something that I've lacked, and vice versa. But I think we got to first stop being scared to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Like
exactly, man.
I think that's where it starts. I think, we got to do a better job of greeting each other, of complimenting each other. And those things.
It doesn't mean in a threatful way. It means,
hey, no, for sure.
My sister, yeah. So
yeah, but I think that anybody has any questions, if there's anything that I can do to help anyone, point them in the right direction, I'm always down for that. Because when a win for someone else, I think is a win for all. Just like a win for me is a win for all. Anything that I do, any accolades that I receive or anything, I always shout out the people or the things that are important to me, my city, my family, the relationships that I've nurtured, because I don't think without any of those things, I would be able to be here and have this conversation with you. Somebody once said, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others.
I like that.
And so I'm trying to go as far as I can, and I know that there's people that I have to take along with me, and I'm just forever grateful for any opportunity, for this, for anything where people want to know more about my brand and more about me. I'm forever grateful, because these might not have been opportunities if I didn't stick it out. Yeah. If I didn't give it everything that I had, these are opportunities that might have missed me.
Yeah. Hey, but it's not, and we're gonna keep going, and we got a lot more to share and more to talk about.
Sure.
So I appreciate you, and like I said,
thank you for having me.
got more to do.